I'm Poppy Cooks and I am the potato queen of the internet, and I'm going to show you how to make delicious, unbeatable mashed potato today. To start off, when you're making mash, you need to have a starchy potato. The starch molecules are what make it lovely and fluffy and delicious. So we're using a Maris Piper potato in the UK, super floury. If you're in the US, you would use a russet potato. Again, super starchy and delicious. So get the right potato, make the best mash. That's my motto. You want to get them peeled, and you can keep your peelings for compost. You can crisp them up in the air fryer. Bit of oil, bit of salt, delicious. Little snacks. So another thing that I like to do when I'm making mashed potato is to not cut my potatoes into cubes or chunks. It's actually to make them into rounds, which are about a centimetre or so thick. I'm not very good with rulers and measurements, but it's something around that. But I'll show you anyway. It just means that the water can penetrate evenly all the way through. They'll cook a little bit quicker and they'll be more evenly cooked, meaning you'll have a lovely, fluffy mashed potato. So, for example, it's gonna be about this thickness. I do have some already prepped as well. So, they've been sitting in water because if you don't put your potatoes into water, they'll oxidize once they're peeled and they can go a bit brown, which is not what we want when you're making delicious, fluffy, creamy mash. Once these little babies are all chopped up, you're gonna get them into cold water. Now that is essential. If you use hot water or boiling water, it just means that the outside of the potato is going to get cooked before the inside, which is going to give you that uneven texture, which means you have like some bits that are a little bit cooked, some bits that are a bit raw when you're trying to mash it, which isn't ideal. So I've got a pan of cold water here, and get them all in. I do like the sound of potatoes plopping into water. It needs to be heavily salted. I use just fine table salt because you don't want to waste that good flaky stuff on the water, but it might shock you how much salt is actually going to go into this, but it needs to taste like the sea. There's a whole process called osmosis, which I won't go into full detail, but it just means that like nutrients comes in, nutrient comes out, and if you don't have enough salt, it all leaks out. Google it. So quite a lot. Give it a little taste as well. It's only me eating these potatoes, I promise. It actually needs more. It literally needs to taste like the sea. We're gonna get that onto the hob on kind of like a jacuzzi bubbling boil. Not like really aggressively splattering everywhere, but kind of like you're just sitting in a hot tub. Just like, boom. So I'm just gonna check the potatoes for the mash and see if they're cooked yet, just by piercing with a fork or the end of like a blunt knife. Don't put your special knives in there. And just see if they are falling apart. You kind of want them to fall off the end of the knife. So this looks like they are ready because they're not actually staying on the end of my knife. Potatoes are boiled. They are, this always scares me. They are ready to drain. Obviously, you can do this over the sink. Does it look like I'm in like an advert for something? With my potatoes, I'm gonna keep them in the pan that they were cooked, but in the colander with a tea towel over. So the residual heat from the pan underneath is gonna help steam dry the potatoes. Because the drier your potato, the fluffier your mash. Having that dry starch molecule means that it will absorb more butter, it will fold in that cream even better, and it won't go glutinous and gloopy. That goes over the top. You want to leave it for around 10 minutes or so. When I'm making mashed potato, I like to make it extra luxurious by using double cream. Now, a lot of people will usually use milk, but cream just makes everything better. So we're using double cream, and for this recipe, I'm going to be using around 250 to 300 mils of cream. You can make it how you want to make it. I like it very creamy, very rich, very fatty and delicious. How do you think I get this body? So what I'm going to do, when you're adding a liquid into a potato or into your mash, we want to make sure it's at least at the same level of temperature or even a bit hotter. It's going to help it incorporate quicker, and also it's not going to bring the temperature of your mash all the way down, because if you do that, then you're going to have lukewarm mash. You're going to have to reheat it some way, and then that takes away a little bit of the love from it. It makes sense. So get that into a pan. At this point, if you wanted to, you could add in flavors. So you could add in whole herbs like rosemary, thyme. You can add in peppercorns, you can add in garlic. I'm going for a very plain and simple mash just to show you exactly how to make it, but be adventurous, go for it. What's holding you back? Absolutely nothing. Get in some peppercorns, get in that garlic. So with anything in cooking, you want to season every single element of it. So I'm going to put a little bit of nice sea salt into my cream and a little bit of cracked black pepper. Once your potatoes have steam dried, they should look a little bit like this. Ta-da! You can see on these potatoes, there's like a, I don't know how to get my hand into here without looking strange. There is a ring of like white starch. That means that they've dried. So we're looking for that. This again is when you're doing roast potatoes, mash, that ring of starch is going to make it fluffy when you're making mash or crispy when you're making like roasties. So we drain them off into a colander, but we're not going to conventionally mash these potatoes because we're making the ultimate delicious creamy mash. We're going to pass them through a sieve. It may seem a bit extra, but I promise you, these few extra minutes of elbow grease will make it so much more delicious. Get a few in at a time. You can see there's absolutely no liquid in here anymore. You know, everything's drained out. There's no residual kind of liquid in there. They're not sticking together. They're still individual potatoes, but they're nicely dry. Right, super soft and fluffy. Whilst we are pushing it through the sieve, add a couple of cubes of butter as you go along. The butter is going to then coat the starch molecules and make the even. It's all about how ultimately fluffy we can get this. So I'm using quite a hard, like silicone spatula, and you can just push it through the sides, and it doesn't take a lot. You can already see there's a lot of potato coming through. You can also use a potato ricer, which is like a mechanism where you put the potato in and you squeeze it through. If you've got one of those that does the same sort of thing, just get it on the fine setting and you'll be fine. So conventionally, people would use something like this, like a masher, to do your potatoes, but using a sieve like this just means it's going to be so much more smoother. The consistency is going to be consistent the whole way through. When you're at this point, you don't want to mix too much. Because potatoes contain starch, it's a little bit like making bread. If you overwork the starch molecules in bread, for instance, if you overknead it, it becomes tight and it doesn't expand as much. So we don't want to mix it too much, because the more we mix the starch, the kind of gloopier and gluey the consistency will be. So we only want to get the cream in when it's hot, because if it's cold, it takes longer to kind of stir in. So there is method behind the madness. Is that the right phrase? We'll go with it anyway. So nice hot cream. I'm gonna start with about half. Now I like to have mine super creamy, but it's completely up to you how you want your mash to be. I want more cream, so it's going in the lot. And my cream has gotten nice and thick as well, so it's going to add a lovely extra thickness to it. Thick and creamy. I'll tell you a story. I basically used to work in a kitchen and I used to make mash for ages all the time. And one time I didn't season the water enough and my sous chef said, taste that, I'm going to go and make mash which has been well seasoned and you'll taste the other mash. There's a massive difference when you're adding salt at the end of a dish to actually adding it at the beginning. If I add salt to this now, it's going to taste a little, you can taste just kind of like salt. That sounds stupid, but it just tastes like salt. Whereas adding at the beginning and letting it cook all the way through the potato means that you're actually enhancing the potato flavour with salt and bringing that flavour up. Whereas add salt at the end, you just taste the kind of raw salt. And then it's ready to serve. I think what I'm going to do is have a little bit of chopped chive on it to make it look proper profesh. Should I chop a little bit of chive because it looks cute on top and it's good for the health after all that cream and butter. So when it comes to chopping, you want to make sure that you're using the claw, which is kind of these top knuckle bits here, not this bottom bit where your little delicate nails are, this area. Using it there, you want to make sure you hold your knife at kind of like the heel. That's the toe and that's the heel of the knife. So you hold your knife at the heel and you kind of rock your knife through. Your knife doesn't really need to leave the board when you're chopping, unless you're doing something large and then you can chop through. But with chopping delicate herbs, you want to keep a nice motion to it. And my knife is kind of always touching this finger. I'm saying finger like I don't know what it is, but that part of my finger anyway. And then you move your fingers back and you just rock your knife back and forth through. It's important you have nice sharp knives for soft herbs because otherwise you bruise them and they go dark, but we want to keep it nice bright green. It took me a long time to learn how to chop, I will be honest with you. A long time and a lot of this isn't good enough, do it again. Yes, chef. We've got a lot of mash here, so I'm getting a nice big bowl. And it's something so satisfying about like just flomping it into a bowl. Yes. A little bit like a dinner lady, you know, like a begrudged dinner lady, like, ugh. I quite like it. Do some kind of like texture, because everyone loves a bit of texture. Some swirls, and then get off that. And then your chives for health, remember. We're all living that healthy lifestyle. Oh, you could also add a bit of melted butter onto this if you want to, but I'm going to hold off because I've put a lot in there. You serve this up to anybody, they will be more than happy. Oh, I cannot wait to dig into this. This whole bowl of mash just for me? Yes, thank you. Oh, okay, I might have gone a bit hog on the spoonful, but cheers. It's just buttery, it's rich, it's creamy. There's not one lump in it. You can almost drink it. Remember to like and subscribe for more delicious recipes like this. I've gotten through quite a lot, I feel a bit ill, but you know, I'm here if you need me. See you in a minute.